What's up, everyone? And this is Next Level Thinking. What's up, everyone? This is another episode of Next Level Thinking, where we're here to inspire you to take it to the next level. It's your host, Chris Holmes, as I always bring you inspired guests, but today I have a special guest by the name of
Marla, Lafayette.
Awesome. So I like the way you said that, by the way. But tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a writer, an author, and I am the executive publisher at Unfiltered Publications. I recently released my novel, Undercover, Pulpit, back in July, and we do publishing services, we do consultation, we do ghostwriting, and I have a couple of projects that I have coming up. I am also an actress. I have been in 3 stage plays. So I have a lot going on right now.
Yep, and the next thing you know, she's going to be on Oprah. So, but it's great to hear you have a lot of good things going on, especially with different kind of business avenues. And I like how you broke it down different pieces like the publishing, and then on top of that, ghostwriting. So I kind of want to start from, well, not yet, but what kind of got you into, what was the inspiration for you to get started into a little bit of all these different avenues that you got going on?
Well, as a little girl, I always loved to read, and my dad, it was a requirement thing in my home that we read every day. So I would read, and I would also love to develop stories. So in 2013, I released my children's book, Grandma's Get Right Game. And so after I released that book, I love the fact that I was able to reach the audience of children, but my ultimate goal was to write my novel. And of course, it took me a couple of years to finish because I'm sort of a perfectionist. So, I want everything to be in order and right. And I definitely like to pray about any project that I think about doing. So I just kind of went with the flow with that. And my younger son, he actually started off in the stage plays, and I was introduced to those through him. So I kind of broke off, and I have been in 3 of Annie Johnson's stage plays. I'm not sure if you know of her. She's a playwright here in Houston, but awesome. She's very awesome. But ultimately, my first love is writing. I love to write. I love to come up with content. I always have been, and it's a passion of mine. So that's where it came from.
Awesome. And then I want to kind of go a little bit more in depth as you mentioned ghostwriting. Yes. Educate the audience a little bit more on ghostwriting. Of course, you hear the broad terms and things like that, and there may be a little bit confusion, but kind of help the audience and educate them of what that kind of service provides. Of course, we're not going to disclose all the people in the project and stuff like that, but I think it's always valuable information so they'll be informed.
Well, ghostwriting is basically for the individual who has the idea, but maybe doesn't have the desire to write. So what a ghostwriter typically does is they would talk to a client, they will figure out which direction, whether it be nonfiction or fiction, just depending on, what type of content they want to release. And we will work together and come up with a plan, in order for a book to be developed. Now, the ghostwriter typically does write either 80% or 60%. It just depends on the client and how much they feel comfortable with writing. But most time when ghostwriters take on projects, they typically come up with the content for the client.
Awesome. I'm glad you hit on that as well. So, you said you did a couple of different projects, and especially with the kids. So, what do you think is the biggest impact for the kids as you do in these different projects?
Well, I know for me, when I did Grandma's Get Right Game, my whole focal point was to introduce reading back to kids, in this day and time, we're so caught up in the music and the video games to where, their focal point is not reading. And, at some point in time, you're going to have to get them to realize that, reading plays a very vital part in everyday life. Reading is linked to English. It's all about how you talk. It's all about, how you comprehend. So with Grandma's Get Right Game, I took the idea of, how when we were kids and we visit Grandma for the summer and we probably had a house full of cousins, I just took that and I developed a story and I used the verbiage and the words that kids like to use. But what I also did with Grandma's Get Right Gang was I wanted to reintroduce prayer into reading because, in the school systems now, they don't really speak much about religion or, prayer. So that's what I wanted to do. And that's what makes Grandma's Get Right Gang so unique, is because it tells all those stories about you when you were with your grandmother, but it also identifies the matriarch of the African American community in their family, which was Grandma, who played a big part in a lot of our lives. So that's what I did with Grandma's Get Right Gang.
Yep, and I definitely can relate to that because in my own personal life, Grandma would make sure she put her foot down and make sure to get right is get right.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that if it wasn't because of grandmother's prayers, that's what basically got us through, If you didn't have a praying grandmother, I don't know of anybody who doesn't have an awesome story about their grandmother. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make the book intriguing for the kids, to give them something relatable to, because if you give a child something that they can relate to, they're going to spark interest in it.
Exactly. And of course, I feel like the grandma, like my kind of style grandma, is like the traditional foundation to like hold things together, because she's not gonna sugarcoat anything. She's gonna tell you if you're right or if you're wrong, and you need that a lot, especially going on, because it's very easy for a lot of people to go in different trends and just follow the crowd,
Right.
and they lose within themselves like who they are, and just pretty much get
Right.
tossed all around. So I'm definitely glad that you hit on that.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So I want to hit on, of course, you have recently published a book. So tell the title of it, because I know this is going to get really interesting.
Undercover Pulpit.
Okay. So kind of go in a quick summary, and then I'll go in a little bit more depth for like what the book is about, because just the title alone will get a lot of people's attention. Like, what? Like, say what? What do you mean? So
Right. And I find myself having to elaborate in regards to this title of this book
all the time.
I think when I thought about doing Undercover Pulpit, I came up with the titles years before I came up with the content. And the title is very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And out the gate, I explained to individuals that is not what you think. A lot of times when people hear something, they automatically think it is what they think instead of kind of really dissecting it. So Undercover Pulpit is basically 3 individual stories that I intertwine, and it addresses the dynamic of crooked church politics. It takes you on a journey of the lives of some members of leadership that's in the church, that stand in the pulpit, that aren't as open with what goes on in their daily day-to-day lives, that they may not want to share, and a lot of times when people are sitting in the congregation, they're expecting to find out, or not so much to find out, but just want to know that the people that are, teaching them and leading them, they're human too. And I think a lot of times, leadership can give off this persona that, they're living this perfect life. So, It just kind of addresses some everyday issues that leadership may be facing within the church that they're not so willing to share. But they're real life issues. It's nothing in Undercover Pulpit that you'll be like, oh, that couldn't have happened. Oh, no, everything that you read about is something that has happened.
And I also like how this story, how you describe everything, because one thing that you know is always controversial is bringing politics to the church. But whether you like it or not, it actually affects the churches all the time. From, of course, you have so many different style of churches, but politics do play a role into it. So that the fact that we are now expressing and talking about it is, I feel like, the moving into the forward direction. Because a lot of times, if you just put something, you try to like throw it underneath and kind of like shovel, I mean, not shovel, but brush it underneath like nobody's going to see or hear from again, it's the wrong way to go about it, because eventually it's going to be brought into light.
Right. And, I think that it's so easy for someone in the congregation to get turned off because, I think leadership feels if we're open about what has happened in our lives, then people will look at us a certain way. And it's not necessarily like that, because I know for me, I want to know that you've gone through something, because if you've never gone through anything, it's nothing that you can possibly tell me to help me fix or to guide me in the right direction. So it's not about, people knowing your business. It's about you having a testimony and a story that you don't know, maybe you or me sitting in the congregation can relate to.
And a key thing that I like we're hitting on is relatability, because people connect a lot more better when they can relate to things. But not only that, just being completely transparent. And one of the the key foundation, not only to like learning is just reading, but communicating. So like if we have questions or we're confused about something, or like if we want to know like, okay, is this right or wrong, you have to communicate, either it's through writing or just talking about in other different forms. So I like how it brings that to this attention. But going a little bit more, like there's like I'm trying to make sure I remember. There's like 3 main characters with different kind of backgrounds in the story, correct?
Yes, it is. You have Tucker. He is kind of like an egomaniac, and he's hungry for power. So he's come from a deep, dark place. So he's trying to find, I think, power, and he's trying to find some validation. And then you have Chance, who comes from, more of the stable background. But he falls in love, and, there's some secrets. There's some things in marriage that he has to learn about. And, I've worked in the mental health field for the past 10 years, so it's a big part of my life. And I feel like it's so important to bring awareness. And I think the only time we are really aware of mental illness is when you hear about it on the news. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to incorporate mental health awareness within in my books, because I felt like it's very important. And if you give someone something in a book that, it's sad to say that a lot of people, they look for drama. So if you put it in a book, but you put the facts, but you give it a twist, it can bring some type of awareness. And that's what I did with the third character. Her name is Ivy. And this was the most, I want to say, not difficult, but interesting story that I wrote for this book. So you have these 3 stories that's all intertwined, and they're all connected, but it takes you on a journey. And Ivy has some things that, she's an evangelist, and she comes from a strict background of ministry. So, sometimes when God fails to meet expectations, people start to feel, like they're failed. So that's what I wanted to do. I also wanted to incorporate mental illness, and I think that it's so important. It's so important. So each character in this book takes you on that journey.
Awesome, awesome. I like that because now you have three, of course, like main characters where a person can relate to one of those three as their own personal story. Where at times, a lot of people like to pretty much attach to certain characters, like especially like in movies or like even in reading of books and much more, because they feel like that
Right,
person understands where they're coming from. So putting into a story as you did, it puts the facts and truth about that, but it kind of like tells it in a a nice way of getting the point across, so that later on, like
right,
when people like, hey, that was a great book, but also it had a lot of great points I think we need to talk about. So it's not like such like
right.
a bad taste in your mouth at first, but now like it's a little sweet now. So now you can feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it after like reading through the story.
Right, right. And I found that a lot of people, when they hear the title, um, they automatically go in the direction of, oh, is it homosexuality, and although that plays a vital part, however, to me, it's bigger than that. Undercover Pulpit is bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that we need to get beyond that and look at some of the real life issues that our leadership has to face. Not to be judgmental, but just to know that they are human too. They're human too. So,
Yep.
I mean, it represents a different, complex layer of, saints and sinners who operate under the roof of God's house. And we're identifying some real life issues.
And I like how you pretty much hit on all those like big points, like definitely, especially with things in the bullprint and much more, because these are topics that we do need to really discuss instead of just sugarcoating and just like trying to throw it underneath. But like, I'm not gonna lie to you, like this almost feels like something of a to be project or probably like a short film or movie series, maybe. You know. So as far
It's so funny because in the support that I have received for Undercover Pulpit, everybody says that, oh my God, this sounds like a movie. Oh my God, it has to be something next. So it's kind of like you walk into it not knowing what to expect, but once you read it, it's like, you cannot just leave me like that. So I'm excited. And I'm glad that people have really embraced it.
awesome, awesome. It sounds like you got a little challenge too. It's like, they're gonna be like, "Girl, this is a great book, but where the movie at though?" So that's so
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
so that's basically what your supporters are saying. So with all of that and much more, like where can they find you on social media and things like that, so they can most definitely stay in contact with you?
Well, they can visit www.marlalafayette.com, or my Facebook is author Marla Lafayette. I'm also on Instagram under Marla Lafayette. And, if you have any questions in regards, because I wholeheartedly believe that everyone has a story in them. It's just a matter of sitting down and developing that content to perfect it. So if you have any questions about writing or meeting a ghostwriter, you can email me at info@marlalafayette.com. Oh, and also you could check out the Unfiltered Publications website at www.unfilteredpublications.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So great information and a great interview as well, and a little bit of a cliffhanger as the movie waits to be produced.
Thank God. Pray it.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence.
Hey, just make sure you invite me to the red carpet. I just want to be like, hey, I
I
kind
sure will.
of. So we're gonna go ahead and
I
close.
sure will.
So we're going to go ahead and close everything out as the story inspires others and educate. This is your host, Chris Holmes, as always, bringing you great inspired guests, and I have my special guest by the name of
Marla Lafayette.
Awesome. Peace and much love, and let's take it to the next level.
I would